All right. Hi, this is Trent Clark. I am the CEO of Leadershipity, serial entrepreneur, longtime professional baseball coach, coaching 3 World Series, and a international speaker. And welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am with my special guest, Nicole Donnelly. Nicole, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's
Uh,
nice to be sunny here and be able to get outside and be more active.
nice. Nice. So you're actually doing the show outside with a cool background. Is that what you're doing right now?
No,
Almost.
although that would be a good idea.
Right, right. We got to figure out how to do these shows outside. It's this time of the
Yeah.
year, you just can't get enough of outdoors with this weather. But so always exciting to welcome a guest of our show, another fellow one percenter, Nicole Donnelly. She's got great tales. I love it. And for our show listeners, the show is all about winners find a way. And if you've ever faced stiff adversity, if you've ever been up against it, the losses are mounting and you need to find a better way. I think you came to the right place to talk about successful people that have faced challenges in their life, worked through them, navigated it, come out. So whether you're entrepreneur, an athlete, a business owner, an executive looking to be elite, I think you're in the perfect place and on the perfect podcast and show for you. So first, Nicole, before I introduce you, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
You can find me. I'm at Nicole Donnelly on Instagram and all the socials. I'm everywhere and not
Yep,
very
everywhere.
hard. Yeah, not hard to reach on social. Instagram direct message. And that's probably where I pay the most attention these days because of Clubhouse.
Okay. Okay, because of Clubhouse. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. And then a couple of your brands, real quick. Happy Camper. What else?
Yeah, I've got Happy Camper. That's what I'm focused on some of that. Tis Best is a nonprofit in Seattle. I'm the current CMO for them. And
Mm.
we're doing a lot of cool things. It's all about philanthropy, charity stories. Um, and that's all I want to mention right now. I've got
Oh,
some other
okay.
things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. You've got a laundry list, so I appreciate that. Like, yeah, stay
Right.
focused. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk a little bit. There's going to be a time at the end here for Q&A for Nicole, and we welcome that. But first, I'll ask a few of the questions. The first highlights of who is Nicole Donnelly? Like, just jot a couple things. Longtime pro snowboarder, growing up, like getting on the circuit, X Games, living out of your car, living the dream. I don't think they ever mention when you say living the dream, like, hey, I'm going to live in my car.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's significant sacrifices to practice, but let's talk quickly before I keep going on about other things, all the sacrifices of the health issue, because you had a major spill, which I think that was in the X Games, right?
Yeah. Yes, it
Yeah.
was.
So that was, national TV, just what you want your folks to catch on TV for you, right? Like, oh, a massive spill, and concussions, numerous. Tell me about that sacrifice along the way for that career.
Well, with snowboarding, I did it because I loved it and I had so much fun with it. I used to compete in gymnastics as a kid, and
Yes.
I love jumping on the trampoline, doing flips, things like that. And so when I learned to snowboard, it wasn't until I was 19 years old and I took a snowboarding class in college, or 20, I guess. 20, yeah. And so I'd go up, and every Sunday I'd go to snowboard class. And I went to school in Utah. So we had an amazing
Yeah.
rec center. And as soon as I was sort of steady on my feet, I wanted to flip. And
Mm,
it's like, oh, you could do this and go compete. And that sounds like fun, you know?
yeah.
And at that time, not very many women were doing it. And so I just thought, oh, this is what I want to do. After school, I moved to Park City, and I learned quickly that there's not much money in it, or like really any at the time. And rent is expensive in ski towns. And so
Yes. Yes.
so I made the choice to live in my car and I chose entry fees to competitions, and the gas to get there over paying rent.
Mm.
So that was
Hey,
the first sacrifice, if you will.
it was economic.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I love it. Yeah, I think for all of everybody listening, I think they have newfound hope, right? Because all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I get 19 and start snowboarding and I can be on the tour. Like, I think you're a really good athlete, and people don't recognize how hard it is, right? And how good everybody is out there. But let's talk about some of the other things you've accomplished, because you're this balancing act of mom, entrepreneur, ultra marathoner, philanthropist, chief marketing officer. Like, and I'll just keep going on about all the things you're involved with, and not easy, right? And then of course you're an author. I love Rash to Riches, right? Rash to Riches, that book, the social media playbook, which we're going to talk about because everyone's trying to figure it out. And Happy Camper. Of course, you were an entrepreneur organization member for some time. Are you still doing that, or you're not a member
Uh,
anymore?
no, I was in for 8 years though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, long time. And then I love one of the things I want to talk a little bit more about too is the National Award for Workplace Flexibility, which has a whole new meaning now than probably when you won that award, right? But we want to definitely talk about that. So say hello, Nicole. And the one thing I want you to tell me is why come on my show? Why is it important for you to talk about these stories and tell your tale?
Well, I find the more that I share my story, I get people messaging me and they feel like they can do it too. If I did it, I
Yeah.
was not born into money, and, I did live in my car for a number of years. I mean, it was a two-door Honda Civic Coupe.
Wow.
My first season. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's that I can do it too, because I'm not special for anything except for my determination,
Mm.
and that, I guess, resilience. um and I have the same struggles as other people do with depression, and after having so many concussions, there's a lot of stuff that comes with that. It's
Yes.
like, well, if she's had 20 concussions and can do this, I mean, what's my excuse?
Right, right, right. Wow, I mean, that's significant, especially after the movie came out a couple years ago, Concussed, when we really talk about that long-term damage. I was a contact sport player for a long time, and always shocked to hear about how female soccer is a really high number, right? Like that's a big number of concussed, right? And so things that I just wouldn't thought of first. Everyone thinks of American football, right? Like, yeah, oh, it's American football. Everybody's going to get concussed. We're just going to go out there and concuss
Yeah.
each other. But yeah, so it's very interesting. So, well, at first, thanks for coming on. We go back a little bit, and I appreciate you spending some time with me always. And I always get a bunch of things I get to glean and take away. So it's so cool. So let's talk a little bit about, maybe a little bit about your superpower. That determination. Was there a time, like, what was the most impactful pivot point for you as a kid that said, like, this drive? I mean, you're this, you got probably some of that drive developed out of gymnastics, right? Very individualized sport. I mean, it's a team, quote unquote, but like no one else goes and performs for you, right? So
No.
it's very individualized, like a swimming or a wrestling. And I love these sports for a lot of reasons, which we'll talk about. But what was that one impactful point where you knew, like, hey, I'm destined to do some big things?
I don't I don't remember about being destined to do big things early on. I just always had a sense of doing things because I wanted to do them, which, coming out of my mouth, you can imagine, would be an issue for people, it's my teachers and parents and
Yeah,
you
right.
know.
Yeah,
But I always had this thing that I have a self-confidence and belief in myself, I guess, that I can do the things that I want to.
mm,
And it's been a matter of figuring out what I want to put my energy behind, because
sure.
whatever it is, I'll figure it out. And with snowboarding, so I went to school because I felt like I had to university. And I didn't know what I was going to do afterwards. And I found snowboarding and I was like, this is it. Like, this is what I want to do. It's so much fun. Um,
Mm.
and, I was discouraged from parents, like, don't do that. Like, get your master's. You'll never go back to school if you do this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, nope, I'm just going to, have student loans and I'm going to go live in my car and snowboard.
Yeah. That's how we do it with the youths. That's how it goes. I love that. By the way, you got to be a great alumnus for Utah. That's awesome. So, all right. So let's pivot that. I mean, I think like you got this self-confidence from somewhere, right? This personal confidence. I assume your parents had something to do with that. And, you're not the first very successful guest that spent a lot of time in the principal's office. Like I think that's somehow not an uncommon theme from leaders who are willing to push a little bit of the envelope and have some opinions and want to be noted. What's your thought on that?
Well, so I started at a private school and I got in trouble more there. There were two kids in my grade. And they mixed grades and it was really strict Lutheran school. And
Okay.
you'd get paddled in front of the class for if you talked in class or anything that you weren't supposed to do. And I in that school I got in trouble. Like after that, I didn't so much, but my sister did. We all have our things,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the private school, they wanted it to be a very certain way. And
Mhm.
starting in, I think the fourth grade is when I started refusing to like take a math test or,
Mm.
do things that they wanted me to do.
Yeah.
And once I could mix in, like I went to a school where there were 90 kids in my grade in fifth grade. And for me, then I could just like be good at my things and not, I don't know, not stand out, but they didn't pay as much attention to you and it didn't matter. And
Mhm.
so I could just be myself a bit more.
Mhm.
And it was really nice. It was really nice to be in that environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that yeah, conformity and rigidity, like
Yeah.
that always that's a tough one, right, for people. I can't imagine a fourth grader like refusing to take a math test. I love that. Like that's bold by on all accounts, by the way. So let's talk a little bit about one of those times you've had to overcome. I love the quote from McChesney and Sean Covey, Utah guys, right out of the Covey Foundation,
Yep.
right there. They wrote a book called The Four Disciplines of Execution. I love the quote: winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win. As a competitor your entire life in everything, in business, in school, whatever. Um, let's talk a little bit about your background that you've had times you were losing. I mean, you just had the most massive wreck right on the X Games, and
Yeah.
there's got to be doubts of, hey, can I recover from this? Can I come back? What's next for me? How do you talk a little bit about some of the challenge you faced, you were down, and how you came back on that?
It's funny. I don't ever question my ability to come back.
Yeah.
Like I know that I will, and I'm determined to find a way. And so I keep seeking that finding a way because I mean,
Hmm.
if you think of it like a little kid, you're like, I'm going to get my way and I'm going
Yeah.
to find out how to do it. And I have that same,
Yeah.
that same drive and determination to like, whether it's snowboarding or business or whatever, it's like, I'm going to find a way to get there. And so it could be like getting press and getting on big shows. It could be for my new podcast, getting some big guests. Um, However it is, I'm determined to get what I want to get to that point, you know,
Yes.
to get to that contact. And I don't stop asking. Like I ask for help. I ask other people, like, hey, like, do you know somebody who knows this person or whatever it is? When I want something, then you just can't stop that.
Mm, I love it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the determination. And I see you like when you talk about it, I picture you as the kid who goes around and goes, "Hey, can I go down and get ice cream? No. Can I go down and get ice cream? No. Can I go down and get ice cream? Yeah." Like grandma said so. You see, like grandma said so. Like I just had to find the right person to ask. And eventually I get there because I get what I want. Right.
Or I will
And kids
just
are
go
great at
get the
that.
ice cream. I just go get the
Oh,
ice
you,
cream.
you don't
I
even
don't
ask.
ask.
So you become the expert of just do and apologize later if I have to. Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's not if it doesn't hurt anybody.
Yeah. Right. All right. All right. All right. I love it. So let's talk about, what do you think? I think a lot of people, when things get dark, they don't think there's ways. Like a lot of folks think there's a lot of roadblocks up, and I don't see a resource way out. I don't see that I'm gonna find a way. Did you ever get to a point on anything like that ever where you just felt like I just keep running against roadblocks and I can't seem to find the right lane, to get through?
Not in business, not in, I mean, so for me, the last 3 years, it's a very personal thing. I have gained 30 pounds. My doctors
Okay.
say, perimenopause, it's your age. Look at your parents, look at your aunts and uncles. Like, what
Yeah.
happened to them? Like, they all gained a lot of weight. And for me, I'm like, no, that is not an acceptable answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm an athlete, I'm active. I eat well. I'll track my eating and exercise. And it's not just calories in, calories out, it's hormonal.
Yeah.
And I've been doing all the things, and it's been 3 years and I still weigh more. And that is the personal thing that I am so
Yeah.
determined to find out that I have not been able to solve.
Okay.
And it's really frustrating for me because if you think about that, like I can't affect how my body is so much in the way that I could affect anything else. Like if I want to
Mm.
go do some business deal, or I want to go on a trip somewhere, or I want to go, like whatever it is, those are easier to solve.
Yes. Okay, good. No, that is a tough one. I mean, that is a tough one. And I noticed like the same thing. I'm 51 now. I noticed like if I go in like and binge for 2 months and just cut out workouts and everything else, I'll spend 10 months getting it back off, right? Like I can't, it's not like when I was 30 and I just went, oh man, I had 2 lousy months. In 2 months, I can be back to ground zero like that. Like I know what I need to do. And the other thing I've noticed is like injury. Like I
Mm.
get hurt, like I don't heal like I used to. Like I used to be like, all right, I'm hurt. I don't feel great. And in 2 days, I'm like, feels better. Let's go. Now I'm like, man, this takes forever to heal. Like I can't, it hurts
Oh,
to wash my head.
I know. And you should see, like, because I had frozen shoulder for like over a
Oh yeah.
year. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I now at my house, I have the near infrared light. I have the near
Mm.
infrared sauna bag. I have like all the healing things so that
Yeah, yeah.
I can manage the soreness and pain of like the things that I like to do. And also, like my doctor said, your hip is like done. It's the
Oh yeah.
torn and shredded. We can't go in and fix it. You have arthritis down to the bone. And I won't say the F word, but I was like, F that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, like so what are they saying? Replace?
But I'm too young to replace. And so maybe when I'm older, I can replace. You just have to live with the pain for now. And so my
Yeah, no
determination,
thanks.
I go all Joe Dispenza on this, and I meditate, and I see it as healed, and I see it as, so now I've been doing this for a couple of years of like using meditation and stuff to heal it. And I can go rollerblading and cycling, and I couldn't do that before without pain. And
Mm.
so I want to get an MRI again to see. I'm like, did I
Yeah.
heal it? Because it's
Yeah.
okay. And that's part of it. Your mind can heal anything.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's somewhere, power of, certainly like The Secret talks a lot about that, like about what we focus on. Power of prayer. A lot of people talk about that. Like I'm
Yeah.
I'm going and giving that up every day. Like certainly those things that and the meditate. I'm meditating very focused on this with positive affirmation about how I want it to be, not how it is today. And I'm
Yeah.
going for that. And I've seen that power of healing. I've seen time and time again. And I have a miraculous story of a friend who healed from, probably one of the worst cancers of all time, and a fungal infection that was, no way is medically explainable, right? Like, it's just not explainable. So it's neat. And I agree with you. The power of the mind is and the power of the heart, like what you
Yeah.
want. I think both of those combined, it's a lot, like people forget this powerful force, what we call our immune system. And I'm telling you, like, it is badass, right? Like, I mean, this thing is like, this thing will, like, I'll tear down walls if I have to. And you're like, no, like, no, nothing's getting through. And so people freak out, but we do damage to it, over time, like any strong brick wall. Like, hey, you start chunking at it with a hammer every day, and then, it's Shawshank Redemption, right? One of my favorite movies, where it's the little pickaxe every day at the wall, and all of a sudden, like, hey man, the guy dug a hole through the whole wall over 20 years.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like the meditation, some things are instant if you're good at it, and some things take time. And there's that persistence, that I guess that's the theme, right? Is this persistence? And
Yeah.
I started, so I'm a 20-year Reiki master teacher. I get
Okay.
I get energy and like how it works. And
Yes.
I started leading guided meditations on Clubhouse. And then I actually just started releasing the recordings. And
Nice.
because that is something I do every day, is I meditate. And sometimes I do guided meditations because like I listen to them because I need that, because I have so much going on in my head. And
Mm.
that's something that I want people to understand. It's like you can find the one that works for you,
Mhm.
and I'm going to be doing a bunch of different types of meditation so that people can find something they connect with and stick with it. Because when you need healing, whether it's emotional or physical, or that you're feeling down, um, you can get yourself out of it, and
Mhm.
that's an amazing resource.
Okay, good. That's my next question. Like, what is that one belief, that one value or action that you'd recommend to others when they hit that low point, when they hit that dark spot? What is that one thing that maybe, like you said, go to? And one of the things I heard you say that was interesting was, part of that consistency, like stick with it. Talk to me a little bit about what you think that is, that one thing.
um well, so with all the concussions and stuff, I get this depression that'll come on, and I
Yep.
can feel it, and it's this fog, and it starts to come on, and I will set appointments with a personal trainer or do something like that. But it's the vigilance to take care of myself,
Mm,
because I think it's part of the drive, I guess. It's that I'm the only one, I have a daughter, and I need to be responsible for her, and
yep.
I want to be present for her. And if I go down that hole, that rabbit hole, then I'm not good to anybody else. I'm not good for myself. But there's something out there that drives me that's more than myself. And like I want to bring joy to a billion people, over a billion people, and
All right.
we've reached like 3 million so far.
That's a
And
goal. So you're looking to a billion is your number,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
I love it. You and McDonald's, like a billion served. You're bringing joy to a billion. They're bringing a billion burgers, right? So
yeah.
I love it. I think that's it. By the way, you're not shy to set lofty goals, and I think people love that about you. I also think that people must have at some point, recognized your talent in things. Like you're saying, like, hey, they see, hey, you could do this. You could do this. Hey, Nicole, you could do this. And you're like, yeah, I'm okay. Like, no. You could do this at this level. So, talk about what you think they see in you, from a coach's perspective, we're always looking for that potential in people. And what is it that jumps?
So my coaches didn't see that. My coaches
Mm.
told me I wasn't good enough to compete.
Oh,
It's like
really?
it's mom and dad telling you no. And I was like, F that again. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go. And I signed up for competition. I come back to practice the next week with a new snowboard because I want to snowboard because I got first place in a big air. or a
Yeah.
half pipe competition or something. And I met a woman who was a coach for one of the ski and snowboard private schools. And
Yeah.
she was lovely and she would coach me at the top. And my
Mhm.
coaches would be there at the top of a border cross, but they would not pay attention to me because they didn't think that I should be there.
Mm.
And there was a woman who she would coach me because there's things like speed check here, or there's you got to keep your speed in this corner, or things like that that she
Yep.
could see that at the time I couldn't. And that's what good coaches do because they know they've
That's
been
right.
there, they have that experience. And so I like she was such a good example for me that that's why I liked to do I'm a mentor for different accelerators because if I
Yes.
can help anybody like know when to speed check or accelerate and
Yeah.
see some of
Yeah.
those things, then I want to contribute because I didn't have that so much. And I made a lot of mistakes in my first business. I made a lot of mistakes. And
Mm.
that's why I like to do the coaching is because I can see that. I can see the course. And um, I can help somebody get down safely and that's as least injured as possible.
Do you think like I love that. I think part of the reason I really identify with that is because, as a ball player, like everyone's telling me no, right? Like the numbers are stacked against you. You're not going to be this. You're not fast enough. You're not this,
Yeah.
which I remember thinking at that young age, like all I'm hearing is, and I think my self-talk at one point became, you're not enough, Trent. And like that's bad. That is
Yeah.
not the place to be until one person said, "Hey, you've got what it takes." And I know because I'm experienced and that really changed things for me because I think that's so valuable when you talk about getting advice from people that have been there. I mean, for me, leadershipity, right? We coach executives. I've owned companies. I've done it. And I fear for people that go, hey, I'm going to go listen to this person. They got a weekend certification. They've never done it, but like they really have a nice cert. And that's
Yeah.
great. Someone continues to get educated, but I do want the experience. I want people that have been on that half pipe going, this is what happens when crosswind happens, and this is going to go on, and this landing is all of a sudden going to be altered, and you need to know what's about to happen. And you're like, oh, well, crosswinds, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, at 30 feet, it's different. Like, yeah, you got to factor some things here. And I just think that it's so important. I think it's such an important lesson. But I was probably driven by that too. I was driven by a lot of folks. I don't think I ever did it, but I think I would have probably at one age would have been loved to go, you know what? I'm going back to my hometown. I'm gonna tell all those people, those naysayers, but I mean, I think it's a little bit, it's actually not a great motivation for me long term. There's a little darkness to it because,
Yeah.
it's part of that's keeping that negative energy around you, like, oh, I'll show you, right? And I'll make a believer of you yet. And so
Yeah.
I think there's
And
some
I don't,
challenges there.
yeah, for me, I don't need to vindicate myself because they're going to see me on TV and they're going to see me in the press. I don't worry about it. Like
Yeah.
as long as I get the support that I need, like the good coach. She was at the
Yeah.
half pipe every day on the hill. And so she would coach me while I was practicing. I would just go at the times when she had her kids there, from
Hmm.
the high school. And from that, like that was a resource that I needed that my coaches weren't giving me.
Mm.
And yeah, when I did run into them again, it was at this half pipe competition um in Tahoe. And my thing was border cross, but I did big air, half pipe, slope style, all the disciplines because I kind of did at that time. And I told them, I was like, hey, I found my thing. It's border cross. They weren't excited for me. They didn't seem to care,
Yeah.
you know? And I was like, okay, all right, well, see you later. And I just like went on my way and kept doing that. And
Yeah.
there's so many times of determination with that. My first, like the season I really wanted to get into X Games the first time, there was no pre-qualifying event because there wasn't enough snow. So what do you do to qualify for an event? All the people from last year get in, but new people, how do you get in? And it wasn't easy at that time to do videos and stuff. You had to use a camera and tape and burn a DVD. So I took highlights of my snowboarding in the summer at Mount Hood and going off jumps and stuff. And I sent a DVD to the organizers and I got an invite.
Nice.
You know?
Nice. So,
So
that workaround, that always kind
yeah,
of taking an extra step to always get there. I think it's a big deal. And I think part of that is all the time you're being trained up in perseverance, right? Shaping you. And it's one of the things I actually get worried about from this mentoring and coaching perspective. I love to encourage people. I think it's really important. But you know what? Let's talk about this for a second because I loved Elon Musk's statement too, like saying, if you need someone to like pat you on the back and give you, a little bump in the tushy and say, and an atta girl and an atta boy, like you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. Like I was like, like part of that, like you don't answer to anybody when you're the founder, right? And so if you need that from somebody, you may not get it in that environment for weeks, months, years,
ever. Yeah.
ever. Like it may not come. I mean, you do get, I shouldn't say ever because we know clients may continue to buy. We have vendors that we work with. So you could tie that to, hey, they like me because they keep calling back to buy or whatever. So I think there's something there. But he was dead fast. Like, if you need that, I think you need to go get a job. And I was like, man. So now I flip that back to the mentorship, the accelerators of the world. And I see a lot of young folks are like, hey, how am I doing? Can you call me every week and tell me, give me an attaboy or an attagirl? And I'm like, wait, what? Like, no, like you gotta do this. Like, this is it. Like, I'm proud of what you're doing. But part of this is like, you gotta take ownership yourself and find the gratitude, the blessing in it all while you're doing it in the journey. Because if you need that every day, I don't think it's going to come in this environment.
Well, so this is where, okay, the Happy Camper guidebook that I wrote, it talks about
Oh,
the six
yeah, let's talk
basic
about that.
emotional, well, it talks about the six basic emotional needs. And everybody
Yes.
has needs that are a little different. And the way that you're talking about it is very typical Gen X, right? Millennials are different, like the different generations expect a different type of leadership.
Mm,
And millennial generation is more cooperative and tell each other they're doing a good job. And Xers are like latchkey kids. They're like, I didn't get it. You're not going to get it. And so
mm.
I think that statement was very of the Xer kind of a mindset. And I know
Okay.
plenty of my colleagues that are like that. And I had a
Mhm.
conversation with a very successful one, like ridiculous. And he's just like, well, I didn't have that. Why should they get that? And why do they
Mm,
need this? It's like, because that's their need. There's nothing wrong with their need. And if they're asking for it, just like I'm asking for entrance to the X Games, they're asking for what they need, then
mhm.
good on them for asking for it. If they
Yeah.
know that we might not need it because we did it for ourselves.
Okay, good. So let's talk about this. I like this one. Let's pivot to, are they really asking for feedback or are they asking for validation? Because
Well,
that
some are
conversation
asking,
came up.
yeah, some are asking for validation. I'm gonna reach down here and grab this real quick.
Sure.
I have my book.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Grab the book. I thought you were going for a trophy, but the book's even better. Like
I know I still keep all my awards. I look at my house in a feng shui way, and there's a place to put them in feng shui. Um,
yeah. All right, good.
but we all have these six basic emotional needs that are on here, and we have little
Yeah.
monsters that come out when the needs aren't met. And there is the need for people to achieve and feel unique and feel special. And some people have a higher need for the verbal like the words of affirmation,
Yes.
to say, hey, you're doing a good job. I don't have those needs, but as a leader, that's something that I learned that I need to provide for my staff so
Mhm.
much more than it is in my nature. And
Okay.
I need to look for every moment to acknowledge, appreciate them, and 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 then when I meet people who are leaders who are naturally that way, it amazes me because
Right.
it's
I
a learned
it's
it's
like,
a learned thing on my side because it
yeah.
was just not in my nature to hey, good job. Like I did not do that
Yeah.
enough for my first team. Um,
Mm,
yeah, and people really like a lot of times they need to hear it and then they're going to give it to their staff.
yes. Yeah, it trickles down, right? And I think that's really, I love that because I love the disc style, the personality styles as we lean into what our primary go-to is. That doesn't mean because we prioritize these areas, doesn't mean you can do the other. You found that of course you can go and be encouraging and catch them doing well and fire them up and you could do it. But it can take some energy, right? You have to train yourself up. And I look at my style where I thought I was really a lot more influencer, kind of I and steady as a kid, where I was really focused, somewhat methodical about some things. And then as I owned more companies and got more involved and had more kids and and I'm like, man, I moved to this D style of behavior because I was
Yeah.
training myself in it because there was no other way to function. So now I look at my ID style, right? And I like and this is who I am. Now, does that mean I can't be like a different style? No. Like of course I can adapt to other styles. So here's my like my quick background, right? On the ID. So you could see like, hey, I've got my ID style. I'm motivated by inspiring others. These words really describe me. Action, enthusiasm, results. But this stresses me out, right? Like overly
Oh,
cautious people
yeah.
like me out. Like I'm like going, oh my gosh, I don't know if we should take the kids out. It could rain. They said rain's in the forecast sometime this week. I'm like, what? Like that's it's bonkers to me, right? So it stresses me. So I love getting that. And I think your example of that you say, oh, well, it's easy for them, right? Like some people make it look easy. I think this is what let's talk about this for a second. I want to pivot this because I talk about this all the time when I interview for shows. One of the disservice I think socially, especially like social media now, because it's so prominent. Entrepreneurship's like kind of like buzzy and like, hey, be an entrepreneur, build a website, and you're gonna be the next Google. Like, wait, what? Like, I know people running their hair studio down the street. They're busting their tail, 18 hours a day, keep food on the table. Like they don't think they're going to be the next Google. Like they're working hard. And I think it's a disservice to talk that, oh, this entrepreneurship stuff is easy. I think there's a lot of people like you who make it look easy because everyone sees it from the outside going, oh, she's got it mastered. Like, and you're like telling the war stories now going, easy. What are you talking about? I don't even want to tell these people they're doing a great job. I want to get my stuff done. Like, and I want them to do their stuff. And I'm going to lose all this energy having to create that because that's important. But like, it's not what I want to do necessarily or what my go-to is. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, to get along in the world, emotional intelligence is important, right?
Right.
And we're lucky that it can be learned and practiced just like anything. You
Yes.
can learn to walk better, you can learn to run better, you can learn to interact with others better, like just be better human, and you could have a variety of reasons because you want to close more sales, because you want to have better marketing messaging, because you want a happier team. And it really is in the emotional connection with people that you're going to compel them,
Yeah.
and you want to inspire others. And you do that by letting them know how awesome they are and not how
Interesting.
awesome you are. And so there's this reinforcement of how awesome they are that needs to happen in order to have those, like to create a movement. Everybody needs to feel, they need to feel included, connected, loved, supported,
Yeah.
and able to support others. And, they need to feel smart and that they can achieve things. They need to feel like they're in control and that they're building something amazing. And when you learn how to bring these elements into the relationships, um, it will become fluid. It won't be so hard. And it's something that anybody can learn. And there's such a hunger for learning this right now.
Mhm.
Um, and you can have more peace and joy, and you don't have to be a bull in a china shop. and people will naturally like want to go in the direction if you provide this environment for them. And so at Tis Best, we've talked a lot about creating a movement and what that would be and how to get people on board. Because we want to compel people, we want to inspire people, and telling people how they spend their money and give to charity, that's not going to work.
Yeah,
we need
doesn't
to
inspire many.
no. No, and you can run a company, you can be like, I'm high D, high I, low S, low C, right? um and if I tell people what they need to do in this department, that's just not going to work. It's not going to be effective. So then if you take it back to like childish, and I'm saying childish, not childlike, but childish words, it is, I can get my way easier if I know these things. I'm going to have less resistance if I practice this. And my way might be bringing joy to a billion people. It might be like creating more charity in the world, but it's basically like, that's what I want. And so if I can offer this value and have people feel emotionally connected to what I want, they're going to come along and they're going to be happy and they're going to have like better lives for it.
Cool. Love that. All right. So let's talk about the balance, because I want to get back to this. Talk about this balancing. I mean, you're balancing, right now you're balancing your own fitness, takes a lot of time, the health, you're caring for you, self-care. You're a mother, right? You got that, you got entrepreneurship, you got the philanthropy. Like, let's talk about that balancing act, because you're not the only person probably out there with a lot of balls in the air. And you're juggling and making it look easy. Like, oh, she's a great juggler. Like, oh, look at that. Like, and I'm not. So I'm like dying out. How do you do it well?
For me, my number one KPI since my daughter was like 5 years old is that I would be there for her 90% of the time before and after school till she was 13. And then I figured she'd have other activities and things she's doing. And now since COVID, I have to be there because she needs a ride to the barn for her riding lessons. And every quarter they change the schedules and it's weird. And she's not in school full time. And she's 16, but in Canada, you can't drive alone at 16. In BC, she's going to have to be, well, she'll be 17 by the time she can do that. So I'm taking her to the barn every day and I spend 4 hours of my day driving and hanging out at the barn in the riding club. And I'm working full time. And so it's this balance of I will work on weekends. She goes to see her dad on the weekends and I put work into there because I know that I'm not getting a full day because I'm going to the barn. And it's 10 weeks. I look at it as like, this is 10 weeks, and this is how we're going to handle the next 10 weeks. And I told my girlfriend, I'm like, okay, this is what this sprint looks like. She's like, that is not a sprint. That's a marathon. That is longer than a sprint. Like, well, in my world, the bigger picture we've had, she goes to university. This is a sprint, right? Like, it's 18 years.
Yeah. I mean, blink and all of a sudden it's going to be university time, right? At 16 and yeah.
And I think about that emotional connection that I want to have with my daughter and the memories. 80% of the time you spend with your kids happens by the time they're 18. Once they are off, you only get another 20% of the time, like in your whole life with them.
That's staggering, right? When we think about that, that's a staggering statistic.
Yeah.
I like the I like the guy. I saw a message one time about this, about the value of how we spend our time. And I thought there was a great visual on the marbles for every weekend you have left. Right? You start taking marbles out, and you're like going, wait a minute, this jar's getting very empty, like in my 50s and 60s, right? And you start thinking like, what am I doing with this recreational time? Where am I spending time with people that matter to me? And I think, you hit it. It's back to this relation that we're on. And I think that's so good so it's priority. I mean, it's really, you set priorities and you build the priority, you build a priority pyramid, like, hey, here's the top. And then as it filters down, you'll get something but like,
Yeah.
it's here. And I make it work at the top.
And the first thing that goes in right now, it's my daughter's schedule,
Yeah.
and being there for writing lessons. And we had to every, 10 weeks, we do a rejig this year because school was different.
Yeah.
And so it's been ridiculous. As a parent, it's been ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
It has. Like,
Yes. Yeah. I think that's one word, 2020, ridiculous. That's the
so
word
ridiculous.
right there. Yeah. So ridiculous for everybody. So let's pivot to that, because, it is ridiculous. Right. And you know me a little bit, I've consulted all over the world. So I usually go to the clients. I'm
Yeah.
used to remote working, not unlikely for me to take interviews from an airport, or, knocking out 40 emails at the Marriott and like, what's next, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking to China in my cab, right?
Yep.
And so, but now, like, the whole workforce got upended. You had the national award for work flexibility. Like, what does that look like now with all these just different variables of children home, not home, where they got to be, where they can be, the time, schooling?
Yeah. So I built my first company with everybody who was parents of little kids because my daughter was little and it was my friends.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, we worked out of my house first until we had 5 people in like this tiny little office, and everybody had babies. And my sister-in-law was like the nanny. And so the kids were all downstairs, we were upstairs, and people want to breastfeed. So they want to be close to their kids.
Yeah.
And so then when we had the office, people could bring babies in. And then as soon as VoIP phones came out, you could take a phone home and you could work from home. And we had the, VPN in and like the old school version of remote working.
Yeah.
Back in like 2006, 2007. And we wanted to be able to support moms. And we had dogs in the office. Like if they weren't going to bark and interrupt phone calls and stuff, we had dogs in the office. We had babies and kids, as long as it wasn't too disruptive for everybody. Or in another company that I had, it was also moms with like 3 kids, 5 kids. And if your kid is sick, that's fine. If you need to bring somebody else in for the day because you need to go out with your kids, that's fine. We had this democratic workplace, like in the next 2 companies, where it came to where one of my clients called me into his office, this $1 billion client. He's like, I don't know if you know this, but this person is taking 2 weeks off. And I was like, yes, I'm aware. He's like, I don't know how you run your company, but this just wouldn't happen in my company. And I said, well, we have 2 other people on your account because we did social media monitoring and we did 24/7 for them. So 2 people took over her shifts for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And, they filled in. She's not going to take advantage. And then when they want to go on vacation, like same thing. And it's that personal accountability. And then that will give you so much more loyalty when you have that flexibility. And that's been a big conversation with my business owner friends is how can you allow this? It's like, well, this is life. This is life now. It's just different. And if you allow for the flexibility for the mom schedule, you will have loyalty. You will have high productivity, because if you require someone to be in an office, all the stats show they are only productive for like 4 or 5 hours a day. So in what I'm building now, we have it that you're working 5 hours a day, Monday through Thursday, and Fridays off. And if we need to do like have conversations on Fridays, it's fine. It's not off limits. It's just that you're not expected to have to work on Fridays. And like Shopify over this time, they gave their employees Fridays off, because when people are working from home, they're typically their output is very high. They're more productive, and the work gets done. When you're expected to sit with your butt in a seat for 8 hours, you're going to be on Facebook. You're going to be doing all these things because you don't have the freedom to do that in your day anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons, we started this program at Journey called Data-Driven Operations, and visibility on what people are working on, where they're like, not time tracking, like, this is what we're working on. And I might be able to do this in 2.5 hours, and the production is there.
Yeah.
And that's what we're really getting visibility on, roles and responsibilities and how we're managing it. And some people can do that really well. I watched one of the companies I worked with who, people, it was a negative effect of the home, because commutes and things like that broke things up. They could get out in their penguin pajamas, flip on that computer at 7 a.m. and look up and it's 11:30 p.m. Like,
Yep.
wait, did I just work like 14 hours like straight? Like, what am I doing? Like this is crazy. And there's a lot of work to be done, especially for like seasonal people like tax, or, where you have deadline
Yeah.
work, and it just gets, it gets tough. It
Well,
gets tough.
that's what Shopify was finding, and that's why they gave people Fridays off, because no one was taking vacation and they were
Yep.
working longer hours
Well,
because
and you
you
can't
don't
go
have to.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Not allowed to go anywhere. So, yeah. No, I can imagine that. Like, that's not mental health. That's not helping us recharge the batteries. I mean, even if it's people, I could make a case that, a Starbucks $5 cup of coffee could also be a mental health check, as you and I stop, see each other every morning, share, some fellowship for 20 minutes before we're off to our things for the day. And then boom, you're off and running, and so am I. But like, I was, oh my gosh, you paid $5 for a cup of coffee. No, I paid $5 for peace of mind.
Yeah.
Nicole grounds me. I get, like, we get leveled out for the day. We get our focus. We're set. We're charged, and boom, we're off. And the coffee was okay too. That's part of the experience of getting ourselves back to that. Like, and it's that's a challenge. Let's talk about the social dilemma real quick. Last question for me before we kind of finish our show is the social dilemma. Have you seen the movie Social Dilemma?
No, I mean,
Oh,
I
really? Oh, you
do
got to check it
social
out.
media for my business. I'm in it. I understand, you know, I understand a lot of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Um, and I choose to be on social in my own ways. And there's
Yeah.
things that I choose not to do because of the awareness around what happens to the information out there.
Yes. That's right. And you wrote the social media playbook.
Yeah.
And some of that, I assume some of that guidance is in that, right? Of where your time is well spent, or how is it? Tell me about that.
Yeah, the social media playbook is it. Well, so just recently we released a social media checklist, like the rockstar checklist, if you want to be a rock star. In the playbook, it's
Okay.
about how to use the different social networks, what they're good for, and how often to be on them, how to
Yeah.
engage, etiquette, like really basic stuff. The rockstar
Okay.
checklist is like if you're good at Instagram or you're good at LinkedIn and you want to be good at all the networks or like jump into a couple more, how to best engage in these new places. And
Okay.
there it's it's a lot. Like you've got content coming out on YouTube. And then do you know about YouTube Shorts?
Yeah. I don't even know about it, right? Like,
Yeah.
no.
So YouTube Shorts is a new feature that they have it in a way that is, it's not, you don't see it as a feature, but you'll start to, if you go to your account, it'll list your shorts if you have any vertical videos that are less than a couple minutes. And they started to turn those into shorts. So you can hashtag shorts in the title. Like you did that before, but it just flipped on that there's this shorts feature. But there's not a shorts upload yet that I've seen. It was supposed to be out last month. Anyways, the the shorts are going to be real, like Instagram reel length type videos. And you can put those videos and they're going to get organic reach. And you can have that on so many social networks now. On Pinterest, we're seeing return that's ridiculous. Like, what was it? 10,000 times the views of reels on LinkedIn, or I mean,
Wow.
Instagram. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they just
That's
are
amazing.
releasing a new feature. And so there's the thing with social is you have to keep up with it so
Yes.
much.
It's
If
ever
you,
changing.
yeah. And if you're creating a movement, you want to reach a billion people, these are the things that you have to do. And there's certain things that you have to be good at. And here's kind of the MVP of being everywhere, what that looks like, the omnipresence situation that it's crazy what you have to do to compete now. When I started my
Mm.
first company, to be top online did not take as much effort as it does now.
Right. Right. I think you could probably, because of the ever changing environment, that I like the idea of you putting the social media rock star every year. That like a version, like 2020. Because you and I are gonna sit back and 10 years ago, oh my gosh, look what the rock star was in 21, because now it's 31. It'll be something totally different, right? And we'll be like, oh, look at this, like
I
YouTube
know.
shorts. That's cute. Remember when that was hot? Like, and we look back at this the same way in our life when we think like, oh, hey, yeah. Peg your pants. That's the way to go. Like that's cool. Like, and everyone's like, what? You did what when you were little? I don't know. We thought we were cool. So I think you could do that. Maybe, an annual version, a release. That'd be awesome. I'd love that. I gotta pick up. I need to pick up all your books. Like I haven't got all your books, so I need to get on it. Okay, let's talk. Let's wrap up here for the best. Time for the best way to win.
That's right.
Anything that you want to share with listeners that we did not touch on today? I mean, people want to have successful companies. They want to have successful organizations. They want to have successful relationships. They're looking to win in a tough environment. And like you said, it's getting harder. And I don't know that we're training people up well on that front end of how challenging it really is out here. I think a lot of people are getting blasted from my mentoring programs and what you've seen. I'd like to know, what do you think on that? But what was that one thing that maybe we haven't touched that you think is really important?
What? There's so many. It is okay to have a job.
Yeah.
It's okay. And you can apply the entrepreneurial skills and design your work environment as you want. My husband and I met, we were both working for this company, and I was a fractional CMO. That's something I do. I go in and act as the CMO. So I was going in their office a couple of days a week, and he was a developer there. And it's funny because his view of it and how we both exited were very different. He could have had the same exit that I did, but he didn't even think about having that kind of an exit. And I thought about it because of, just business background, and why wouldn't I ask for that?
Yeah.
And there, you can still be entrepreneurial in your work environment. And that's something that we talk about a lot, because he wants to be an entrepreneur, and he's very much an employee, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because you can still do something. This is another thing. So Jim McCann, who started 1-800-Flowers, he was buying flower shops and building that business for 8 years while he kept his full-time job.
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Amazing.
And they've acquired a lot of companies now, and he has this huge, he's not running it currently. His brother is, but what he built, and I interviewed him for my podcast for the Tis Best one. And it was really interesting to hear his story, because you would never have known that he kept his steady for 8 years, because he had kids, and you do need to, there is a point at which you will jump, and for everybody, it's different. Everybody's risk tolerance is different. Mine is really high.
Yeah, mine too. And you're significant, who's like mine, it sounds like, is what a lot of us probably are attracted to, is our opposite, right? And so my wife's risk tolerance as SC, because I'm on the top of that DI too, that risk tolerance is very low. Let's have methodical systems. Let's have a plan and process behind everything. And let's gauge out how you would leave that full-time job in 8 years, Jim, and plan for like what? Like, I'm jumping in 3 months. Like the next quarter, I'm going to figure out how to do it. That. Do you find that the same?
Somewhat. And like my energy of risk and action, like taking action constantly towards what I want, has spurred more action in him. So he's got this idea for a product, and I was like, buy a 3D printer, just buy one, they're cheap. And so he has made more progress in the last 6 months than he has in the last 7 years, because I'm I bring the possibility, and I bring that energy, the creative energy to it, where he wants to do it and feels like he needs, like, the right way to do it is different. The right way to do it is like, you have your job, and that this other thing is too risky, or I'm going to fail, or people will make fun of me. And a lot of times it's that inner chatter that stops that. And if you can have somebody, and this is the thing, like, this is my life learning, is that, people do need encouragement and a push sometimes, and that it's at their own pace, and their own pace doesn't necessarily match yours, you know? And
That's good.
for me and for my daughter, it's different too. Getting her out the door would always take like 30 minutes from when she was a kid. It still does. She needs a heads up. She needs to, like, the way she gets out the door of the house is much different than me. And
Right.
and I
Yeah.
think that's like, having her, it just gave me a more compassion for a different perspective. And so, and then with my husband too, it's more compassion, and I see how I can help him to get where he wants to go in a way that works for him, not the way that works for me. And with my daughter, it's getting her where she wants to go in a way that works for her. And that is, and so, to know yourself and know the support you need and the people you need in your life, you can kind of call those people in. And if you need somebody who's there that is going to, help you go at a faster speed, then you call that person in. And you go to Clubhouse, honestly, and you can find those people at any pace, answer any question that you could possibly ever have about any business at this point.
It's good. All right, let's end with this. That's so good. I think, and I like the description of the entrepreneur, of how important that is inside companies, of people that are thinking about exactly how the operation works, thinking about how we could do growth, thinking about what the value is, that, and the sustainability of that possible choice, right? And whether we could actually do it and process it. I think that becomes a big superpower and skill now, especially when we're trying to create sustainability in organizations. And we know how tough it is to do that. Let's I like your words. Okay, so let's go to your quote. Do you have a quote that you have, like, a go-to for you, that's like, man, this is one that always kind of speaks to you, uh, can motivate you? Is there something there for you?
So I'm looking at my Happy Camper book right now,
Good.
and I have some quotes that I love in here. And the one that I first turned to was, only those who dare to fail greatly can achieve greatly.
Mm.
And that's a
Yeah,
John F.
that's
Kennedy.
your risk. Yeah, that's your risk tolerance right there, right there. Like, right. I think that's awesome. I came to like, because I think you've really mastered and worked hard to master that power of encouragement. I thought of you as in, affecting 1 billion people, right? Like, that's such a great goal. I like Proverbs 18:21. The tongue has the power of life and death, like the power of us in encouragement and what that can mean. And the opposite of that too, like the tongue has the power of death too. Like, we can be absolutely terribly mean, and it's not good. And even unintentionally, right? But so
Yeah.
how do we lean into that? So I think that's what I thought of you when I thought of your storied history of speaking into other people, because you always have the power of life, right? So love that, Nicole. Um, for everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Nicole, tell them where they can find you again.
You can find me at Nicole Donnelly on Instagram and all the socials. And happycamper.world is where you can find out more about the 1 billion souls mission. And
Yeah.
his best is where you can find me being CMO and doing all the charity and philanthropy that I love.
Perfect. Perfect. For us, you can find us. This is the Leadershipity YouTube channel. Thankful that you're here. Please subscribe, rate this 5 stars. We always bring on high quality guests for great content. Nicole's no different. Of course, you can find me on all the social networks at either Leadershipity or Trent M. Clark, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn's probably our biggest right now where we're at. Make sure you watch for our upcoming ebook, The Pyramid of Leadershipity, which we're excited about. You can DM me anytime directly. Again, please subscribe. Nicole, thank you so much for this time together. Always a pleasure, and I love our time together.
Thank you. Thanks, Trent.
All right, gang.